Jay Prince is a genius. At least right now he is. Let's see how it plays out. From the start, Team Andre Ward has been winning the mental battle against Team Sergey Kovalev. Just as Team Rock Nation pulled a fast one since the first fight on Team Main Events. You know, this all started out with how they handled the promotion in the first fight, to the fighters' purses, and even the first horrific decision of the night when they gave Maurice Hooker, a Rock Nation fighter by the way, a criminal and a very unjust decision over Darlise Perez. These laid the groundwork for what's going on right now. Now, before I continue, let me add this. I am not an Andre Ward fan at all. He's probably in my top 10 of least favorite fighters. But the mind games that he and his team are playing right now are very effective. That doesn't mean he wins this fight, this rematch. But you always hear boxers and trainers and commentators and the like say that boxing is 75% mental, or 85% or 90%, etc. But they talk about the mental part, and that's always higher, greatly higher than the physical. Well, they just don't mean in the ring. They mean outside of the ring also. Well, in the lead up to this fight, Team Ward is winning the mental battle. Jay Prince made a great move the other day. A day or two before Sergey Kovalev's media day, a story came out that, according to Jay Prince, John David Jackson, Kovalev's trainer, reached out to Team Ward. And according to Prince, John David discussed leaving Kovalev to join forces with Team Ward. Now, this also occurred a couple of days before Andre Ward's media day, which followed Kovalev's media workout. I think it was a day later than Kovalev's workout. But the timing was impeccable, because what it did was it forced John David Jackson and or Sergey Kovalev to talk about the situation. It also forced the media's hand, because just about everyone interviewing Jackson or Kovalev asked them about the story that broke. So in some videos we see John David talking about it wasn't him that reached out to them. He said it wouldn't make sense for him to reach out to them. Now, that part makes sense to me. It wouldn't. But that's about the only thing JDJ said in his interview that made sense. Let me break it down. You see, Team Ward's offer to JDJ may have never been genuine from the start. But after the first fight, when Kovalev kind of put it out there that he might need to talk to his old trainer, he was considering bringing him in. Team Ward saw that. They heard that. So months later, when they approached JDJ, we don't know if it was a genuine offer. In other words, they could have just been putting feelers out there to see what it might lead to, see where it takes them. It's kind of like playing poker or playing chess. So the idea may have been not to really bring John David or JDJ on their side, but attempt to uncover if there was any dissension between JDJ and Kovalev. If so, then let's go a little further, see where it takes us, and we'll proceed from there. But they threw the olive branch out just to see where it would take them. Might not have been a genuine offer at all. So, excuse me. However, once they discovered that there wasn't any discord between the two guys, they went with the second phase of their plan, which was to use the timing mechanism of the J. Prince revelation to kind of put the story out. Spin or no spin on the story. It's called ingenuity. And the timing was perfect. Now, as much as I don't like Andre Ward, I like JDJ equally as much. So the amount of dislike I have for Ward, that's the amount of like I have for John David Jackson. I mean, I kicked it with the guy on at least 2 occasions, I believe 3. I know once there was a fight card in West Virginia. We kind of chatted it up for a little while. And there was another time in Brooklyn when Amir Khan fought Chris Algieri. Kind of kicked it with him a little bit. West Virginia was at the Evander Holyfield versus Sherman Tank Williams fight. And so I like John David Jackson. Cool dude. But on this channel, I call it straight. Whether I like a guy or not. I gotta be honest. Not only am I confused about John David Jackson's comments, but I got a problem with them. And if I'm Team Kovalev, if I'm Sergey Kovalev, I got a problem with him too. But we'll get to that later. But in some of the John David Jackson videos, when he was being interviewed at the media day, see, the J. Prince thing got released a day or 2 before the Kovalev's media day, and then the media jumped all over it. The timing. It forced them to kind of ask the questions, and it forced JDJ and Kovalev to answer them. So in some of Jackson's videos, he talked about how Team Ward reached out to him, that he didn't reach out to them. Okay. But based on his answers, I'm wondering if that part of the story even matters at this point. Whether who reached out to who. JDJ then said in the video that he was loyal to Sergey. And then said if he was offered Fort Knox, he would have taken the offer. And then he followed up and said, in the end, even if he would have been offered Fort Knox, the right thing to do would be to stay loyal. And that's where I have a problem. I got a problem with his statements. In one sentence, you're saying you're loyal. In the next sentence, you say, but if I was offered Fort Knox, I would have left. Then in the very next sentence you say you didn't leave because you're loyal. Really, John David? I mean, which one is it, Holmes? Those three sentences just don't flow. They send a mixed message. Basically, you're saying, hey man, everyone has a price. If I would have heard that price, my loyalty would have flown right out that window. That's what he's saying. And look, if he would have jumped ship, this isn't unprecedented. If you look at Yoel Casamayor's first fight with Diego Corrales, Casamayor-Corrales won. Joe Goosen was in Casamayor's corner. Goosen is a very good trainer, as is John David. Oddly enough, during the intro, directly behind Corrales is, you said it, Jay Prince. So Casamayor, with Joe Goosen in his corner, won by TKO over Corrales with the same Jay Prince in his corner. So they fight a rematch. And guess who's in Casamayor's corner now? The winner's corner. Well, it's another trainer. And guess who's in Diego Corrales' corner? Take a wild guess. It's Joe Goosen. So he pretty much took Casamayor's trainer from him for the rematch. And guess who's standing behind Joe Goosen and Diego Corrales during the fighter introductions? A guy named Jay Prince. Now let's look at Lennox Lewis versus Ali McCall. Alright, in the first fight, Oliver's trainer was Emmanuel Stewart. Very good trainer, just like John David Jackson. So Oliver McCall won the fight over Lennox Lewis. They have a rematch. And in the rematch, guess who's in Lennox Lewis's corner now? Emmanuel Stewart. So Lennox Lewis took McCall's trainer from him for the rematch. Just like Diego Corrales and Casamayor. So when it comes to trainers, you know what? Well, I'll sing it for you. These hoes ain't loyal. These bitches ain't loyal. So my point is, when JDJ is mixing loyalty and Fort Knox in the same sentence, what do you think the real message is? Now, here's the point I'm trying to make. Don't get me wrong. John David Jackson owed it to his family and to himself to listen to the offer that Team Ward made. But don't give me the loyalty line, because in reality, your so-called Fort Knox price wasn't met. Loyalty means allegiance. It means you have no price. There is no price tag. So you can't say, oh, I'm loyal, but if they would have gave me Fort Knox, I would have left. But in the end, I'm loyal. I'm proving myself to be loyal. Nah, man. That's nonsense. So later in the video, he said he kept quiet about the offer to not interfere with Kovalev with this nonsense during training camp. Well, if that's the case, JDJ, when the story broke, why not just laugh it off and not comment at all? Or if you're going to comment, simply call it gamesmanship and leave it at that. But he didn't. He couldn't. So he says that they brought it up now to kind of throw him under the bus with Sergey. So then he goes on to say, when he was asked, well, on Team Ward, who reached out to you? And he says, well, I'm not going to name anyone. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. Why the heck not? They threw you under the bus. Why wouldn't you throw them under the bus? Future considerations, maybe? Once again, what message does that send? Especially to his team. So then one of the interviewers, one of the interviewers went on and said, well, if it was me and I got that call, I would have been like, get out of my face and hang up. John David Jackson's response was, well, if it would have been Fort Knox, he would have left. But in the end, even if he got Fort Knox, his loyalty would have been with Sergey. Now you can call, like, dude, I'm confused. What are you really saying here? You could call it me overreacting, but his answers just didn't sit well with me. And to be honest, win, lose, or draw, John David might be out of there with Team Kovalev. I mean, I just gotta wonder. Then there was a follow-up interview I saw where he kind of blamed Kovalev for not being in proper condition for the first fight. And I quote, in the first fight, on his part, his conditioning wasn't where it should have been. He can't blame me because I did my job. He didn't allow me to do what I needed to do to make him a better conditioned fighter. So he says it was Sergey's fault, not his. I mean, is this supposed to be a motivational tactic? Even if it was Sergey's fault, why say it that way to the media? You are Team Kovalev, not Team John David Jackson. So if you guys lost the first fight, don't blame it on your fighter. I mean, who's throwing who under the bus now, JDJ? I mean, I listen to how he said it. Like, it's his fault. So I wanted to wait to do this video to see how Team Andre Ward answered to JDJ's rebuttal during Ward's media day. But nonetheless, here's what I believe. I do believe that Jay Prince and Josh Dubin and whoever else reached out to John David Jackson with an offer. Whether it was genuine or bogus, I believe they reached out. So I'll give John David half a point for that. However, I also believe that John David Jackson took the bait and actually let them know what his Fort Knox number was. I think he let them know his asking price, which speaks to that loyalty nonsense he was talking about, right? So let the games begin. The mental portion is at stake now, and it has been since, I'd say, the day after the first fight. The mental game has long been started in this, which allows me to segue into the mental aspect of this thing. Sergey Kovalev has had the following on his mind from day one. All right, you ready? First thing is the money. Sergey Kovalev was the champion and had multiple belts and he was defending them against a guy who was moving up in weight and had no belts. Yet, Andre Ward got paid more than double of what the champion's purse was. Do you think Kovalev didn't have questions for his side once he found that out? So, the money. That's mental right there. That's mental. And then you have main events telling them, you know, don't worry about stuff. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. There's another angle. Okay? That's mental right there. Then you have the judges. Kovalev felt robbed. So he asked main event to even the score up a little bit and go ahead and request neutral judges. Team Ward said no. Now, an ex-champion like Kovalev, who pretty much should still be the champion, deserves better than that. But he didn't get it. Once again, that plays on the mental. Then Kovalev's game plan immediately changes. Once he heard about, okay, I'm not going to get the officials, his game plan immediately changed for this fight, even though it shouldn't. Once again, that's mental. Then he brings in the Russian conditioning coach, as his blame is kind of towards JDJ for the conditioning. JDJ says it's Sergey's fault, not his. So here we go again. Those things are mental. He's thinking about all of this stuff during camp. The money, the judges, every once in a while, main events comes, hey, we're going to take care of this, we're going to take care of that. These things are playing in his head. Then there was discussion about not the Russian conditioning guy, but his old Russian coach actually training him instead of or in addition to JDJ. Once again, that's a mental thing. Now he keeps saying he must knock out Ward in this fight, even though he outboxed Ward in the first fight. Like the game plan has just totally changed. I have to knock this guy out. That's playing into Ward's wheelhouse, especially after how well he did boxing in the first fight. That's mental. Then he's on this, I really need to destroy Ward now. He's on this, I have to destroy Ward kick ever since Ward didn't show up to record the face-off with Max Kellerman. It was supposed to be at the Mandalay Bay the day after Canelo versus Junior. They were both in town, both in Vegas. And then all of a sudden Ward doesn't show up. And Kovalev has been livid ever since, rightfully so, but he move on from that, but he's still talking, I gotta destroy him now. The way he's been acting, that's mental. This is all mental. So, what do you have? You have no face-off. You got main events trying to calm him down. You got the money issue. You got the issue with the judges. You got the conditioning coach issue. You got the trainer issue. You got the loyalty or lack thereof from your current trainer issue. You've got the consideration of changing. And you've got the knockout game plan instead of boxing Ward. You've got distractions coming from all different directions, and then boom! Before you know it, it's fight night. Will you be ready? Will you be where you need to be mentally? Or are all these distractions going to lead to your downfall in 2 weeks? It's a legitimate question, because I think the mind games that not only Team Warders have played, but that is causing his own team and him to play on himself, It's a legitimate question. You know, I remember when Michael Jordan, a guy I like about as much as I like Andre Ward, I remember when he went to the NBA Finals versus the Seattle Supersonics. And Jordan was extremely concerned about the series that they had to play against the Supersonics. They matched up well. So he played a mental game on their best player, Gary Payton. And what Michael Jordan did was he took out a full-page ad in the newspaper saying pretty much what he was going to do to Gary Payton. And Gary Payton had a little bit of a quad injury or what have you, but he's a gamer. He's ready to go. But they saw that ad, and the very next day, Gary Payton took a full-page ad out in the paper to respond to Jordan. And that, my friends, is when Michael Jordan knew he had him. He knew he had him. Once Gary Payton figured he had to answer Michael Jordan back instead of ignoring Jordan's ad, he began to play Jordan's game. That game of chess I talked about. That game of poker. And it really wasn't Gary that he conned, it was the team. Not only did they suggest that he do the ad to respond, but when the series started, they deviated from their plan, and the quad injury may have had something to do with it, but listen, you're in the finals. They put another player on Michael Jordan instead of allowing Gary Payton to guard Michael. So by the time, as the series went on, by the time they eventually put Gary on Michael, the Supersonics were down 3-0. Now, let me tell you what would have happened had they allowed Gary to guard Michael. Let's skip to game 4. Okay, they're down. The Supersonics are down 3-0. 3-0. So, game 4 in Seattle, they decided to finally put Gary on Michael. And guess what happened? Gary Payton guarded Michael Jordan like his nickname, the Glove. Jordan shot, ready for this, 6 for 19. Okay? Took 19 shots, made 6. I think he scored like 21 points or something like that. He got his free throws and all that. But 6 for 19. So then we get to game 5. I think game 5 was also in Seattle. In game 5, Jordan went 0 for 4 from three-point land. And during the decisive fourth quarter run for Seattle, Jordan had only one shot and he missed it. And after the game, in true fashion, Michael Jordan pointed fingers at his teammates and, hey, I got double teamed and I passed it to guys and they didn't make shots. Okay. So now it's 3-2. We go back to Chicago. Same deal in game 6. Game 6 back in Chicago, Jordan shot 5 for 19. You understand? He took 19 shots and made only 5. The great Michael Jordan. So he's 6 for 19 in one game. Comes back home, game 6. All right. And shoots even worse, 5 for 19. In the end, Chicago won the series because Jordan's mind game took a concern and turned it into an advantage. And that's what Andre Ward and his team are trying to do. They're very concerned, as they were in the first fight. And to alleviate some of that concern, they're playing mind games. Bottom line is, Seattle should have put Gary Payton their best defensive player by far on him, as he was Chicago's best offensive player. By the time they did, the series was over. Too late. Folks, never underestimate the mental aspect of sports, of workplace, and in the game of life. I'll catch you on the next one.